All right, welcome. Today we're diving into a really fascinating text that looks at life, faith, and all the stuff that gets thrown at us through this powerful metaphor, a high-stakes game of chess. It's really a strategy for turning trials into triumphs, and it all kicks off on a sort of battlefield of the soul. So, let's see how the game is set up. So, right out of the gate, we're not starting with some dry theory. We get this almost mythic image. It immediately sets a scene for a story about conflict, about strategy, and, a divine alliance. We've got our heroes, this king and queen. But as we all know, every good story needs an enemy. And that conflict, that challenge, it all unfolds on what the text calls the divine chessboard. This is the absolute core concept here. It's a way of looking at life not as just a bunch of random things happening, but as a spiritual game, one with clear rules and a very specific goal. Okay, so let's be super clear. This isn't about a literal game with wooden pieces on a board. No, it's a pretty profound worldview. It basically reframes all our struggles. So you start seeing them not as just random bad luck, but as intentional moves from an opponent, moves that you can actually counter with your own strategy, guided by divine wisdom. And of course, every game needs its players. On one side, you have our protagonists, the king and queen. And they aren't fighting alone, not at all. They're described as being armored in divine protection, guided by an eternal king. And their opponents? Well, they're these shadowy forces who don't fight with swords or anything like that. They use psychological weapons, doubt, deception, all those hidden agendas.
Now, if you want to win any game, you have to understand how your opponent plays, right? You got to know their strategy. So let's break down the enemy's moves. What's interesting is that the source material lays these out not as just vague feelings, but as really specific tactical plays on the board.
The enemy's army is described with these incredible, almost personified chess pieces. Think about it. You've got pawns of doubt just slowly, methodically creeping in. You've got knights of deception making these wild, unpredictable attacks. And then the bishops of hidden agendas, striking from an angle you just never saw coming. This whole framework even defines things we've heard of, like curses and manipulation, as direct tactical moves within this game. And the stakes? They could not be higher. The opponent isn't just playing to mess up your day or cause a little trouble. The end game, the whole reason for the attack, is way more serious. It's to checkmate the soul. So you're faced with this incredibly determined opponent. What do you do? What's the counterplay? Well, the text doesn't suggest just sitting back and defending. Nope. It lays out this dynamic, proactive strategy of faith, where the king and queen actually seize control of the game. Their counterattack is this really clear three-part process. So first, they reject the move. They just refuse to accept it. Second, they command that attack to be stripped of all its power. But this third step, this is the brilliant part. They don't just block the attack, they transform it. They decide that its energy is now going to become a blessing for them. This whole strategy, this whole counter move, it's all built on the foundation of this one core belief, a promise they claim from their eternal king. And in this framework, that's not just wishful thinking. It's treated as a fundamental law of the game, which gives them the authority to make their move. That idea of transformation, it's probably the most powerful concept in this whole framework. This is the central mechanic of victory right here, turning curses into crowns. It's this art of taking all that negative energy and not just neutralizing it, but actually harnessing it for a positive outcome.
And here's exactly how that logic plays out. A curse doesn't just fizzle out, it actually becomes a radiant crown. A hateful word spoken against them gets converted into honor. A trap set by the enemy becomes a stepping stone that literally moves them forward. Even an attempt to get them removed from their position results in them being elevated. It's a total, complete reversal of the enemy's intention. And get this. This principle of reversal isn't just for a few things. It's all-encompassing. Within this worldview, every single move made against them with harmful intent gets flipped to increase their favor, their influence, and even their wealth. The attack literally becomes the fuel for their own promotion.
So, what does the end game look like? After playing the game with this strategy and winning, what are the results?
Well, the ultimate outcome is this legacy of just complete and lasting victory.
The spoils of this spiritual war are described as being absolutely vast. We're talking multi-generational wealth, a lasting game, healthy and loyal relationships, and divine favor on pretty much everything they do. The victory is so total, it's even said to include a tenfold restoration of anything that was lost in past battles. But here's what's really important. The ultimate prize isn't actually the material stuff. The most important thing the victors ask for is wisdom, what the source calls a double portion of Solomon's discernment. This shows they have this deep understanding that all those blessings don't mean much without the wisdom to manage them properly. They want the vision to rule their own kingdoms with real justice.
And with that wisdom secured, the game comes to an end. The divine king guides their final moves, leading to a decisive, permanent victory. A checkmate whose effects, it says, will echo through eternity, securing their legacy and fulfilling their destiny.
It's a really powerful and, a very structured story for spiritual victory. And it leaves us with a pretty compelling question. I mean, regardless of your personal beliefs,